feeling good, can I tell?
Okay, hold tight, family. My name is Brother Ray. On family on the Zoom, can you see everything in front?
Yes.
Sound good. Thank you very much. My name is Brother Ray. January, December 10th, we'd like to welcome everyone to the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr. History Club. First and foremost, we want to thank the Zoom audience that supports the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr. History Club. Zoom audience, give yourself a great big hand. The people from Detroit and all over the tri-state area, thank you for tuning in to the Mackey's group. Number two, for the people that's here and alive, please give yourself a great big hand. Ladies and gentlemen, we meet every other Wednesday in honor of William Mackey Jr., El-Haj Malik El-Shabazz, Professor Amos Wilson, Gil Noble, Louis Ray Rivera, Brother Hassan, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Attorney Alton Maddox, Sister Leola Maddox, Professor George Simmons, and all the historians that gave up fame and fortune to burn the midnight oil to write books and bring truth, because that's one thing the conqueror can't stand is the truth, and he tries his best to stifle it. So these people, George G.M. James, Hubert Harrison, it's George Simmons. They just went beyond the call of duty, and they didn't have to do that. They sacrificed. Miss Leola Maddox, in honor of the UAM, and late great Attorney Alton. Miss Leola Maddox had a old car. She came from Teaneck, New Jersey, all the way to the UAM. She ate her dinner in the UAM because she believed in bringing people together, family, especially for elections. And she didn't have to do that. So we meet to try to keep it alive and bring people together. Because if you see everything that's happening now, if you don't know what you're listening to, you're going to be lost in the sauce. So we're going to bring the camera over to the Amos collection. We're going to bring the camera over to the Amos collection. And the Amos collection is a set of books that we use to help Brother Sababu in African World Info Systems to continue the great work of Dr. Professor Amos Wilson, who left us too soon. We have the classic Blueprint for Black Power. Also, Sababu's latest in honor of Amos, The Psychology of Self-Hatred and Self-Defeat toward a reclamation of the African mind. And in this day and time, the African mind has to be recreated. Black-on-black violence. The psychodynamics of black self-annihilation in service of white domination. And family, I'm going to read it one more time. Amos Wilson, Black-on-Black Violence, the psychodynamics of black self-annihilation in service of white domination. So we have to be careful when we talk about we do it to ourselves. And you hear everybody talk about, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? We can't get it together. We can't do this. Well, they had an incident in New York, and it seemed like a whole bunch of other folks can't get it together neither, but they don't tell you that. They only talk about black folk. Awakening the natural genius of black children, issues of manhood in black and white, African-centered consciousness versus the New World Order, the developmental psychology of the black child, Falsification of African Consciousness. Earl Ponder, Revealing the Unspeakable Bible Verses. And Distorted Truths, the Bastardization of African Cosmology. Linda, do me a favor, see if Louis Ray's book is in there, is over there. And ladies and gentlemen, I have a few books that I always like to, no, I got it. And Louis Ray Rivera, Jazz in Jail. We have this book in honor. And I never want to forget the great Louis Ray Rivera, who, when Professor Mackey passed away, and we tried to keep Mackey's name alive, and Louis Ray would come down here, and he took up the mantle, and he would come down here, family, and he would speak. He'd come out of Marcy Project, where we grew up. He would come down here and speak, family, and he would speak for 3 hours, 3.5 hours. And he lived 4 blocks away from here. We'd close up and walk him home, and he'd talk for another hour and a half. So his knowledge was lost because he's not here. So we have this book in honor of Louis Ray. In honor of Big Harold, the transfer agreement, the untold story of the secret pact between the Third Reich and Jewish Palestine. And if you look at everything that's going on with Palestine, you better get this book and start reading it. Also, in honor of Dr. Ben, we have Dr. Ben, black man of the night, and his family. In this book, they didn't have too many computers, so Dr. Ben, we honor him with this book. Dr. Randy Short, Slavery Mastery, the Impact of Religious Slavery, Dr. Randy Short. In my personal opinion, the only one that cared about the people of Georgia, Cynthia McKinney, when China sneezes from the coronavirus lockdown to the global political economic crisis. Thanks to Brother Truss Graham and Louis Ray Rivera. And they mention this book, Jews, God, and History. This is one of the baddest publications out. So I want to thank Brother Truss Graham and Louis Ray for mentioning this book, so I just want to put it out. Everywhere you turn around, family, you got a medical marijuana weed spot all over the country where it's legal now, and it wasn't legal before. Dope Incorporated. The British Opium War Against the World. And if I go to page 49, it's a great big picture of George Soros, the one behind the medical marijuana. All you got to do is read the book.
Who's that about?
Yeah.
George Soros. Soros, a rich guy.
Capitalism on a Ventilator, the impact of COVID-19 in China and the US. This is another excellent publication. It's a hard to get book. I lucked out and stumbled on it in the Lower East Side, and I've been trying to find it. Can't get it. Dr. Scott Whitaker, Monderson. He's out of Georgia, and Dr. Scott has an excellent publication on health, the causes and solutions to disease, malnutrition, and the medical sins that are killing the world. Dr. Scott's book is unbelievable. Ayo Kamati, War on the Horizon. His publication, Jews Are the Problem. It's a small read, but the study material in this book is unbelievable. So we want to thank Ayo Kamati, War on the Horizon. You know, I want to thank Professor Mackey. I was going over of the old tapes, and he mentioned this book, City College and the Jewish Poor. And it goes on the history of City College when everything was free. And then when we came along, now you're paying all types of money for a college degree, everybody in debt. So he mentioned this book, and I wound up picking it up. City College and the Jewish Poor, 1880 to 1924. A lot of us wasn't even born. And on up, Dr. Mack. Edward Dow's classic, Causes Unknown, the epidemic of sudden death in 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. And he used to be an analyst with BlackRock. And they wanted to find out, according to the book, in his words, they wanted to hire him to find out why all these healthy individuals was all of a sudden healthy, and then next thing you know, they start dropping. And BlackRock wanted to find out. And he has the charts and everything and the pictures of all the youngsters that all of a sudden just dropped. So we want to thank Edward Dow, just something to read. Robert Kennedy, The Real Anthony Fauci, bestseller. And Joseph McCullough and Ronald Cummings, The Truth About COVID-19. Some more books. And I wound up just cruising and picking these up. Also, Robert Kennedy, bestseller along with Brian Hooker, PhD, The Wuhan Cover-Up and the Terrifying Bioweapons Arms War. And Vax Against Unvax, Let the Science Speak. And this is Robert Kennedy with doctors. This book is based on over 100 studies in peer-reviewed literature that consider vaccinating versus unvaccinating population. Each study is analyzed and health difference among infants, adults, children who have been vaccinated, and those who have not are presented and put in context. Readers will find information. Readers will find information. The infant child vaccination schedule, thimerosal in vaccines, live virus vaccines, the human papillomavirus virus, HPV, vaccination and Gulf War illness, influenza flu vaccines, hepatitis B, the COVID-19 vaccine, and vaccines during pregnancy. Giving the massive push to vaccinate the entire global population. This book is timely and necessary for individuals and families. And it says, the studies the CDC refuses to do. So if you got a problem with it, talk to Robert Kennedy and Brian Hooker. And everywhere you turn around, family, you hear the cliche to get black people to vote. And the latest one is reparations. They can't even take care of their own. You think they're going to give you something? You're out of your mind. This is a book with all the pictures. And Brother Raji, these are the pictures of the hangings. From the ropes. It's called Without Sanctuary. It is pictures and pictures and pictures and pictures and pictures and pictures. And all we hear is study and study and study and study. We want to get it. They even said it in New York. We're getting a permission. Can't look at the goddamn book. I will name a few community events. Tomorrow, Thorough Black Talk, Tag, Keisha, Ashe, Brother Black and Sister Marcia, comes on 8 o'clock. Thorough Black Talk on Facebook Live. Our Philadelphia connection with Sister Empress Chi, Blog Talk Radio, and the Million Women's March. That comes on Saturday at 10:30. Grab your pen because the telephone number is 1319-527-6189. Sister Empress Chi in Philly is getting it on. Ayo Kamati comes on every Monday at 10 a.m. Sankofa Revolutionary Radio. And he gets in his publications, Jews Are the Problem. That's Sankofa Revolutionary Radio, WSYP 95.1 FM. And that radio program comes on Mondays at 10 o'clock. And you can even call in. Anybody can call in if they got a problem with the program. Our Baltimore family with Brother Darren Muhammad, State of the City. Saturday, 12 o'clock on Instagram. Also on Facebook Live under Darren Muhammad on Instagram. So that comes on. Now, every Tuesday, and Brother Darren, he might be on today or tomorrow, and Saturday, he comes on 12 o'clock, so you can catch him live. Every Tuesday, get your pen. Brother Dr. Aline, Your Immunity Project, 7 o'clock a.m. So if you go on Dr. Aline, Your Immunity Project, Monday at 7 o'clock, his program is on the money, and that's a Zoom meeting. So you go on Dr. Aline's website and you can find the information on that. Mondays at 7 p.m. Okay, this is our Newark family. African Echoes out of Newark. Brother Trust Graham, 8 o'clock. Brother Trust, True Day, and the gang out of Newark. They have a Friday study group, and Trust Graham is the mediator of that group. And if anybody from African Echoes is on, they can put the information in the chat. And family, you thought you know some studying, but when you get down with that African Echoes group, with Brother Trust and the gang out of Newark, you're going to be all right. Then they so good, they give you a double header. After Friday, the Know Thyself study group out of Asbury Park. That's Brother True and the brothers out of Asbury Park is getting it on. They give you a double header because Trust Graham is the mediator of that study group, and that comes on at 1:30 on Saturday. And I believe they're doing the destruction of black civilization, and on Friday they're doing Amos's book. So that's a double header for you. And then you come back on Saturday night at 10:30 and hit Sister Empress out of Philly. So your Saturdays is good. The Semotap organization with Dr. James McIntosh, Sister Betty Dobson, and Richard Dean Theodore. That comes on WBAI from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock every Wednesday. Sorry, Dr. Mac, I missed it today. I was busy. But if you go into Semotap, you can find out everything what Dr. James McIntosh and the Semotap organization is doing. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to view all the lectures from the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr. History Club, you could go on YouTube and type in Brooklyn William Mackey Jr. History Club, and you could go over the lectures, cross-check whatever you don't believe, and that's what you spend your time. So these are just some community events that we give to our listening audience so they can further themselves on getting more information, because that's what we need. So ladies and gentlemen, if you missed last week, our good speaker, Dr. Fred Monderson, is going to be the keynote speaker. His other 2 lectures are on YouTube. He did the lecture last week, part 1, and he said, Brother Ray, I got to give him the rest, part 2, because it's just too much information. And I want you to give a great big hand for part 2. And the Queen, her architects, and then he's going to say something on Brother Sonny Carson. Ladies and gentlemen, give a great big hand to noted scholar and good friend of the Mackey's group, Dr. Fred Monderson. Good. Thank you, Robert.
Good evening, family. Good evening. It is again a privilege, an honor to be here in this seat, in this holy spot, to speak with this wonderfully, highly intelligent listening audience. Continuing the tradition of show and tell, I want to just bring some things up to your attention that I've been working on over some time. This past year, I was able to produce a few books, including Get Your Knee Off Our Necks. Who speaks for the black vote in the age of Trump? Leaderless Republicans. More woman, more power. And of course, black nationalism still alive and well. There is a black nationalism, and this is the companion volume. I wasn't able to, I was too loaded on today. Well, of course, my classic, Sonny Carson, The Final Triumph. I defined what the final triumph, as he was walking the walk and talking the talk and talking the walk, which I'll get to. I'm pretty sure that you're familiar with 100 years of lynching. I was in Alabama with Brother Walter Brown. He took me to a memorial that one of the Southern Legal Eagles was able to establish. He established a museum and a memorial. He had found something like 4,400 sites where blacks were lynched. And he set these planks in the memorial indicating what each borough, we call it borough, but in each state of the South, how many people, their names, that were lynched, to no avail. This is simply a list of people who were lynched in Delaware, just Delaware alone, okay? And these are all names. This man, Ralph Ginsburg, he chronicled something like 10,000 people that were lynched between 1870 and 1955. As Brother Ray said, you got to get your material together. Quite frankly, I like speaking truth to power. Too often, one of our heroes, his name is Barack Obama, is constantly on the friendly fire. I remember when a young woman named Tawana Brawley came to Reverend Sharpton and said, "Those 5 white men over there raped me." He didn't question it. He stood up like a man and defended her. Back in 2008, I heard a clip on TV. Barack Obama, not ready to lead. I wrote a book about it, small book. But I ended up chronicling the Obama experience in the White House. There was a book called Obama, Master of Washington, D.C., which was my second of 4. Then I wrote this one here called Barack Obama, Master and Commander. at the end of his term, I wrote, Obama, the journey completed, never promised a rose garden. Throughout the 8 years of Obama's experience, I wrote about 300 articles for the black newspaper in Brooklyn. Of course, I wasn't on payroll. I was trying to educate my people about what was happening. How, as Malafi Asante called it, the lynching of Obama. So I stood up at that time, and I still stand today, because I know without this guy, we may not be here. Anyway, in the tradition of showing, I want to continue by I've heard so much said by people that they were actually in bed with Dr. Ben. I don't know much about that. Personally, as far as I'm concerned and relating to Dr. Ben, there's only two people that I respect. One is a guy named Dr. Lewis and his wife, they've been there. And Greg Hardy. But I've done a great deal to preserve the name of Dr. Ben in the most positive manner. Pardon me while I get my bicycle out. I did this salute to Dr. Ben in Jersey City. I think it was the 5th Memorial Day tribute. Someone said to me, why are you doing a Memorial Day tribute to Dr. Ben and he's not even dead? Well, that was the only slot that was open at the time. So I was able to say this. I did another one. This was called the 12th Memorial to Dr. Ben.
Let me zoom it in. All right, got it.
And then here's another one which I had done, which was the 6th Memorial to Dr. Ben. This was the 10th annual memorial that I did to Dr. Ben, and you will notice it says free, 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 free. I was in Egypt in I go every year, but in 15 I met these, the people who were running the temple, in charge of the temple, and they were talking about European control of the economy of Egypt. And he asked me, next time you come back, can you do a lecture for the workers in the temple? I'm not talking about taking a bunch of people and standing up over here and telling them, this is a column, and that's a pyramid, and that's a gate. No. The scientific department came and recorded everything that I said. So in 2016, when I returned, I did a lecture, and I entitled it the Dr. Ben Lecture Series, because Ben I considered was a master of Karnak Temple. This one was saved. This is the second Dr. Ben annual lecture series at Karnak Temple, Luxor. Nobody's done that. The next year in 17, that was 17. This is 17. The next year in 18, when I took my son to Egypt, I did an additional lecture. I called it the third lecture. So I thought I was on a roll. When I came back in 19, they said, hold on, you can't do it anymore. What had happened was that the guy that was in charge had moved to another location. So I was not able to continue in that tradition. But my job had been to preserve positively the name of Dr. Yosef Ben Johanan, who had been one of the most important influences in my life when I began this journey around 1971. You know, like the returning soldier, I'm forced to turn to fight one last battle. So my sponsor asked me, well, we're approaching the Dr. King holiday, so we would like for you to say something about Dr. King. So I tried to incorporate it into today's presentation because my plate is really full. And I bear with you because I want to get to something about Dr. King. I must speak on Sonny Carson. I want to get to Queen Hatshepsut, her architect, and the temple. So you see, I got quite a task. So, without much ado, I'd like to say about Dr. King, what I've learned. First of all, Dr. George Simmons, Professor Simmons, always said to me, Monderson, he said, I don't write about Dr. King or Malcolm X. Too many people do that. I only write about Egypt because not enough people work on Egypt. Dr. Ben had admonished me back in early '72. He said, Monderson, there are 50 countries in Africa. Choose one and become a specialist on that. Don't be a generalist. So I chose Egypt, and from that time to today, I've been investing my funds in learning about Egypt. But nevertheless, to accommodate Brother Ray, I thought I would get some information on Dr. King. So here I am. I'm saying that anyone who reads the letter from a Birmingham jail would realize Dr. King, Dr. Martin Luther King, was a man of courage, vision, resilience, tenacity, inspiration, and tremendously committed to the civil rights movement, the upliftment of black people. In fact, he had compassion for all people, despite the many problems of segregation, racism, and other forms of inequality. Nevertheless, Dr. King never tired of praising this country. That is why he dedicated so much of his effort to transform its dangling discourse into an orchestra of harmony. He loved music. In a book called Voices, it is said Dr. King, in fact, considered music to be the soul of the movement. Folk songs, spirituals, and hymns heartened protesters as they stood up to fire hoses, dog attacks, and arrests. And one song in particular, We Shall Overcome, was really moved Dr. King. If you've been to the confines of the African American Museum as it was being constructed in Washington, D.C., there was an image of Harry Belafonte singing to the protesters. Personally, I believe we can't fight America. America is the world's military arsenal. It has all the weaponry. However, we do know the pen and the vote are mightier than the sword and the gun. We need to use these effectively. We can fight for and within America, forcing it to live out its creed. And this is what Dr. King did as he sought to change America for the better. He was tired of seeing white and colored signs. He was anguished as mothers saw their sons hanging. He recognized there were two types of laws, just laws and unjust laws. He felt you could obey a just law even if it's at your peril, but protest and fight against unjust laws. When I said Dr. King never shied away from praising this great nation, I mean he saw the possibilities for our people who have nowhere to go. This is where we have to turn, we have to burn our boats. In fact, we have to burn the boats of the people who brought us here. When the bones were interned in Ghana, Jerry Rawlins, then president of that nation, West African nation. Ghana. G-H-A-N-A. I'm from Guyana. Jerry Rawlins reminded Sonny Carson that the black people in America are Africa's Trojan horse. That is why the oppressor wants us to give up on America. Sadly, but factually our ancestors' blood fertilized the soil. Their labor nourished the economic might of this nation. They are buried here. And if we leave, we can't visit the King Center, to view the Martin and Coretta Mausoleum. We can't go and see Malcolm's gravesite. We cannot see the lynching memorial in Alabama. These landmarks are our inspiration. We must instill these significant experiences in the consciousness of those kids at the Christmas show I spoke about the last time. Dr. King continuously took enemy fire from the likes of Bull Connor and George Wallace, from blacks and whites who disagreed with his method of creative nonviolent action, generating tension that challenged racial discrimination in the South, especially from the people whom he was trying to help. I call it friendly fire. He paid a price in many ways through the action of J. Edgar Hoover and FBI, as well as black woman Izola Curry, who stabbed him with a letter opener in Harlem on September 20th, 1958. She was determined to possess an IQ of 70 and was later had been psychologically and emotionally troubled and was committed to the Manhattan Psychiatric Hospital for the criminally insane. Recently, another black woman tried to burn down Dr. King's house, his childhood home. Just the same way when Reverend Sharpton was protesting in Bay Ridge, this guy stabbed him when Sharpton got back on his feet, and he ultimately forgave that guy, just as the saints who were murdered at Mother Emanuel Church forgive Dylan Roof because they didn't want to be burdened by the hate that he was trying to spew. As a fighter, Dr. King chastised white racist behavior, economic inequality, the harshness of poverty, police brutality with their dogs, lip service of white liberals, as well as compromising Negroes. He believed segregation is not only politically, economically, and sociologically unsound, but is morally wrong and sinful. But most important, he fought for the right to vote. He praised the right to vote and the power of the ballot. He praised the actions of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. At his funeral, at the funeral of Alton Maddox, one of the speakers mentioned Shadrach, Meshach, and big Negro meant that Alton Maddox stood up. So Dr. King praised those who suffered in fighting against an unjust law. In 1965, as he led the Civil Rights Movement, and after the effort successfully accomplished the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and recognizing this was not sufficiently effective, Dr. King visited the White House and said, "Mr. President, we need a Voting Rights Act." To this, President Johnson responded, "I can't do it. I used up all my political capital in getting the Civil Rights Act passed." When Dr. King came out of the White House, he was asked, "Well, where do you go from here?" To which he responded, "We are going back to the South to get him some political capital." What he meant is that he was going to mobilize the black vote in the South too, and ultimately this enabled him to pass the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The vote is so important. Malcolm X reminded us that the nation is so divided between Democrats and Republicans. The black vote can tilt the decision. He says, we can determine through a mobilized black vote who goes to the doghouse and who goes to the White House. That is why Republicans are afraid of the black vote, unleashing resistance to make it difficult to vote and introducing some 400 legislative measures across the country designed to curtail black voter expression. We must never forget what Lord Marshall said in the Chronicles of Riddick. I'm going to leave your world as the last one I will destroy. So there is no safe space. We have to stand up and fight. Dr. King was against electing Negroes who were the people's representative to the white man, but who turned out to be the white man's representative to the people. In their posture towards education, their speech, their dress, their place of residence, their cultural choices. That is to say, these people who felt that they had made a little progress and they were better than those like themselves who were at the bottom. I want to remind you that I mentioned Barack Obama. In 2005, Reverend Lowry, 2009, Reverend Lowry spoke about if you're black, stay back, and so. And Jesse Jackson said that Barack Obama was the best thing that the civil rights movement could muster. Yet, this great man, they call him a nigger. This Cam Newton or Newell, whatever his name was, he called him a nigger in the White House. I think it was 15, I was in front of the White House. I think it's on 15th Street where Jackson Memorial is, and there was this hillbillies in the short pants, all kinds of no shirt, all kinds of writing on his head, and he was giving this one finger salute because he knew that the president was looking out the window. And the Secret Service was just sitting there, the canyon, he was expressing himself. So it doesn't matter. Malcolm said it doesn't matter what kind of Uncle Tom you are, they do the same thing to you because they see your color. We all in the same boat. And we got to figure out our strategies so that our children will be able to withstand. And I said that the last time, that we have to teach them intellectual autonomy so that they'll be able to think for themselves and stand up. You probably one of the things that I always do is, my job is to preserve black culture. So I used to go around the city taking photographs of what I call street murals. Okay, and there was a guy named Stop. He was an artist. He had many places. He had decorated storefronts and what have you. And there was a particular spot on Northern Avenue towards Park Place where there was a big mural there. And one of the individuals in the mural was Moms Mabley. You probably heard of her. She's an ancient comedian steeped in black culture, right? And she was a part of that, what you call the Chitlin circuit that was in upstate Catskills, Peg Leg Bates, in that including Moms, Peg Leg, Red Fox, and several others. So one day she was joking, and she was characterizing this southern governor, and he had this dream that Dr. King was elected president. So she rushed over to the White. She said, "I rushed over to the Capitol, and this is an honest fact. I started to the front door, and Roy Wilkins made me go around to the back." I'm just telling you what she said. I'm delivering the message. Today, Dr. King would be against Donald Trump's white supremacy extremism, his lies, his moral bankruptcy, disrespect towards black women especially. Dr. King was especially appalled against Negroes running to Trump for the crumbs on his hamburger table. Dr. King struggled to transform discord into harmony. Discord and harmony are some themes or concepts that Dr. King championed unending. I visited the King Memorial in D.C. many times and took photographs of the many classic statements that are lined up. The following are some of Dr. King's classic thought expressions. I have come to the conclusion that the ultimate measure of man is not where he stands, where he finds himself in time of comfort comfort and convenience, but where he finds himself in moments of challenge and moments of controversy. Harmony, the central fact of American civilization, and so hard for others to understand, is that freedom and justice and the dignity of man are not just words to us, me black people. We believe in them. Under all this growth and tumult and abundance, we believe in such. The crescendo. As a result of the leadership of the Civil Rights Movement, he was Time Magazine Man of the Year in 1963. And in 1964, he won the Nobel Prize for Peace. He passionately believed, and he let it know. I believe we shall overcome. The real significance of the 1963 march was not about a dream, but about jobs, concern for poor people, and more. Malcolm X reminded that the press know how to put it. They hide it on page 75. You would never get to that page, but by the time you get to where you're going, you finish, you discard the newspaper. And so the press misrepresented his message's meaning. So they highlighted the idea of the dream, not the poor people's concern or the need for strict voter protection. Nevertheless, the significance about the speech was that it changed attitudes. It generated righteous indignation against racial discrimination that became widespread after the march. It initiated a time of promise and achievement. You could feel it. The same feelings we experienced when in 1995 Minnesota Farrakhan called for the Million Man March. I was in D.C. in 2013 for the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington by Dr. King. Again in 2023 for the 60th March. The same feelings I had with the anniversary of Dr. I had that with Minister Farrakhan's Million Man March. I attended every Million March. The Million Man March, Million Woman March in Philadelphia. I went with G2 and the Son. When G2 said we go to the march, I said, man, why you go to Million Women? Where you go to March for Women? He said, I'm not going to let a million women get together and don't have some security. I said, sign me up. So I went there with Kojo and the Son, with G2 and the Son Kojo. I attended 2 million youth marches, the one in Harlem, the one in Brooklyn. I went the Million Family, that one called Justice or Else, when he said, one of the earlier marches, he said, you don't think that I killed Malcolm? He posed a question. He said, you don't think I killed Malcolm, right? Because I wouldn't be here. Look who was giving him the multiple resuscitation. And then when he called for the Justice or Else, well, we were looking for all kinds of, he says, I'm here for justice. The or else is on you, what you're going to do when you leave here. And it's the same way with the Million Man March. Everybody was united and this and that. The women at home were walking on air, they were getting respected. And then all of a sudden everything fell down because the agents were among us peeling off the ideas that we wanted to implement. And it's happening today. With the election coming up, you got everybody running, this guy peeling off, they peeling off. The guy from the Matrix, he was on TV, and they said to him, well, you know, a third party candidate can't win the election. He said, I believe I can win this thing. Then they posed the question of Donald Trump to him. He said, Brother Trump. I mean, you imagine you can go to Russia and say, Brother Putin, or China, Brother Xi. But he is there to peel our vote from, let's say, Joe Biden. I vote to Biden. Who do you listen to? The gentleman asked, who are we? I asked, who are you listening to? I'm listening to James Skyborn. Right? James Skyborn. He was on TV today, on the news today, and he talked about how many women, black women, that Joe Biden put on the bench. More black women on the federal bench than all of the presidents combined. Listen, It's your choice. I vote for me, and I vote for my children. Okay? You do what you gotta do. But remember Lord Marshall. In 2022, the Black Eagle and Albie Shore were on the Great Lawn beside the Capitol building, challenging, protesting the same injustices that motivated Dr. King 60 years ago. All because Frederick Douglass, and we must remember that we got to struggle unending, because Frederick Douglass reminds us that power concedes nothing without the struggle. It never did, and it never will. You got to ask yourself, why is Reverend Sharpton, Dr. King, Mark Morial, and some of these other people running up to Washington, D.C. every August? Because the opposition. It's the same thing that any kind of black leader encounters. If you go back to Harold Washington, this guy Richard Green, that was Harold Washington, mayor of Chicago. Richard Green was chancellor of the city of New York Board of Education. They apply so much pressure to these people to get them out. Well, we gotta fight to maintain our dignity and our right and our position and our rewards. So, what Dr. King was fighting for in '63, he's still fighting for it today. And why? It's not because of love of the oppressor. I must recognize Republican action, even with the shenanigans of Senator Manson and Sinema. They killed the filibuster movement 2 years ago. That is why the George Floyd Act, the John Lewis Act, all of these important legislative measures were not passed, is because even within the Democratic family, there was opposition. And we always gotta wonder, as my good friend once said, who's taking the money? Nevertheless, all this notwithstanding, Dr. King's favorite quote from Mahatma Gandhi was, "In the midst of death, life persists. In the midst of darkening, light persists." So, ladies and gentlemen, those are some of the few words that I have to offer about Dr. King. Okay? Without much ado, I want to get into Sonny Carson, because I should have done that last time. As I said, Sonny's book, The Final Triumph. This book is a compendium of 4.5 books that I was writing. I didn't finish the 5th book. So I wanted to get something out, because this year past was 25 years in which the bones were repatriated to Ghana, West Africa, to create a site of pilgrimage for African Americans going to Africa trying to find their roots. That's when Jerry Rollins told Sonny that the Africans in America are Africa's Trojan horse. I have a few displays I want to make you aware of. First of all, some of these I've shown you before. Professor James Smalls indicating that the return of the runway was a symbolical gesture for all of Africa. Panafest honored the return of the runaway Samuel Carson, who was buried in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Sonny wrote us about a monument to enslaved Africans. Principally, the Brooklyn Navy Yard was a segregated black cemetery. And I've got something coming up. I'm going to be looking for your help on that. Sonny, James Small, Alana Broad, Jeet Wissi, Joe Mashariki, Carlos Russell.
Turn it to the front.
These are people who stood up for Malcolm's wife, Betty Shabazz, after her tragic experience. And again, Sonny was in the forefront of praising Malcolm. And Herman Ferguson, who protested on 125th Street and demanded that the businesses close their stores on May 19th, Sonny's birthday. Malcolm's birthday. Sonny was the 20th. Black Solidarity Day was outlined by G.T. Lucy. Excuse me. This is a story about Abner Louima, who was sodomized by a New York City cop. I can't remember his name, but in response, Sonny indicated that every cop who heard Louima scream in the house, in the station house, should have been fired or indicted. So this is in response to this. And so Sonny determined that rebellion should be the phase one of our movement for independence. Independence of mind, independence of thought, independence of our history. This is a list of some of the black veterans who were buried in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. I got a list of about 250 such people. There was a Marine who was buried there in 1801. The Brooklyn Navy Yard was a segregated black cemetery. There was a hospital there, and if they died, they would dump them in the Navy Yard. Many of these people were removed by the Navy in 1926. So we are approaching 100 years since those veterans were reinterred in Cypress Hills, in Queens, which is a national cemetery. But there are still bones buried in the Navy Yard. Just as in 1995, the bones of Samuel Carson was discovered there. And there are still more people there. One of the things that Sonny wanted to do is that as the Navy was divesting of ports such as the Brooklyn Navy Yard, he wanted to get some of that land so that black businesses can be established there. And up come Rudy Giuliani, and we were pushed no longer as back burner issues, we were pushed out of the kitchen. So we have no imprint over there, no footprint. But things are going to be changing. I have a few photographs that I want to share with you. This one here is, we have...
let me zoom in.
We have Walter Beach. He played with Jim Browns and the Cleveland Browns. He had a Super Bowl ring. Sonny Carson. Mr. Banks, he was a voting specialist. He would get you on the ballot because he was that adept at it. And of course, Rashid. Here we have Sonny doing his thing with the red, black, and green. And at one time we were trying. We were trying to get the name. His name is going to come to me in a minute. But Reverend Sharpton came out. Stan Kennard. Stan Kennard is running for assembly, and Sonny was able to bring, even though they were never seen together, Sonny and Sharpton came out to help elect Stan Kennard. when we were strategizing over the bones before being taken to Ghana, we were in in the confines of a church with the hearse, the bones, and Sonny saluted the bones. We have a few members. There's chief members in attendance. Here Sonny is in Ghana with the chiefs after the bones had arrived. Here's Sonny speaking at Ed Davis College when the congressional delegation with John Connors came to New York to investigate police brutality. And here's Sonny with the bullhorn, Reverend Sharpton, Mike Hardy, Sonny Carson, Dr. Jeffries, Ateem Ferguson. I love this picture here. G2BUC at the funeral. He looked so majestic sitting in the front pew.
Turn the front. I want to get G2.
Yeah.
Okay.
So majestic, he looked in the front pew.
All right.
At the bottom, okay, so we've got push. What is push? Well, we choose the youngest among us and push him in a makeshift ceremony so that he will carry the ideas and the significance of our meaning forward. So we're pushing this brother here. I'm behind the camera, so I'm not always in the photograph, right? We've got, there's a hearing in District 23 after Chancellor Crew suspended the whole school board, and Attorney Carl Thomas, the big fellow in the middle, Abubakar, Abu, and several other people were in attendance. This is at the funeral of Carl Thomas, Gerald Joshua, Mr. Banks, not Banks, Mr. Beach, Reverend Dees, Sonny Carson, Gerald Joshua, Rashid, and more of the line that's going into the funeral parlor. Dr. Jeffries reading a proclamation. Again, I think I showed you this one: Beach, Sonny, Banks, Rashid. After the city council turned down Committee Board 3's passage of a resolution to name 3 blocks on Gates Avenue, the city council took up the matter, and Christine Quinn was the leader of the city council, the speaker, and she voted against it by co-opting a few of the representatives. You remember Dr. King said that our representative to the man turned out to be the man's representative to us. So we got here now Charles Barron, Kareem Kamara, and this was a ceremony where we changed the name of Linden Park to Sonny Abu Bakr Park. But of course, the Parks Department came, took down the sign, and put up the old sign, but symbolically it was done. Here's Sonny with the bullhorn trying to get Sam Kennard elected. Sonny Carson was instrumental in getting Malcolm X Boulevard, Martin Luther King Boulevard in Brooklyn, Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X in Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy, and he laid the foundation for Fulton Street to be renamed Harriet Tubman. So on the day of the funeral, on the procession from Brooklyn Bridge, Pops And these two other guys, they brought the sign to show that it was now official that Fulton Street was renamed as Harriet Tubman Boulevard. Sonny opened the door of return. For centuries, we've heard of the door of no return. But by re-interring Samuel Carson, he opened the door of return so that Africans can now go back to Africa, go to that site in Ghana, and then begin to locate their ancestral heritage. Finally, Sonny Carson was at one of the public schools with Dr. Jack Felder. He was speaking to the young people, and this concludes those presentations. As I indicated, I showed you this list of black veterans that begins at 22. This is the first 22. This is the second 22 of names who were buried in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Here's a letter that Sonny wrote to President Bill Clinton regarding the 2000, he counted 2,000, there have been many more, who were buried in the Navy Yard. And here's another letter that he wrote. Dear Mr. President, is there any honor left for black vets buried in the Brooklyn Navy Yard? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring some honor to these people. And finally, the African burial ground, which was in the Navy Yard, was uncovered, and the bones of Samuel Carson was unearthed. So those are some shown images. I need to say a couple of things about the book on Sonny Carson, and then hopefully I can get to my lady. You know, one of my names is Hatshepsut's lover, because I love the lady and the temple. So I'm going to read a selection from the book, one of the chapters of something that I'd written in regards to Sonny when we were organizing. As we approach this anniversary, we're remembered with the passing of Sonny Abubudika Carson. The black struggle in America and worldwide lost one of those great all-time fighters for equality, human decency, empowerment, and upliftment of black men and women. By extension, varied minority groups identified with and benefit from this freedom fighter's steadfast insistence and dogged determination in confronting power and its arrayed show of force seeking to thwart activism, all to no avail. Contemporary associates, adversaries, lieutenants, commentators, beneficiaries from his efforts were prolific in their descriptive shibboleths that he was brave, courageous, insightful, determined, shrewd, skillful, clever, but most of all black. As he met one challenge after another in his native Brooklyn, across America, in Africa, and worldwide.
All right, can you mute yourself, please?
Coming late to his life, but still at a meaningful time, I searched beyond my experiences for individuals who had known, interacted with, respected, been a part of his struggles, and were familiar with his triumphs and tribulations, successes and failures, but even more important, his final triumph. Sonny Carson meant many things to many people. His movie and the book, The Education of Sonny Carson, the book, The Education of Sonny Carson, and there is a movie, sometimes it shows on Netflix or one of those I guess you would want to get this. The education of Sonny Carson simply marks the beginning of his passage through urban youth coming of age in America. Civil rights, education struggles, and black economic empowerment, even challenges to and with police culture. In discussion, the title of my book, Sonny Carson, The Final Triumph, became a viable option for the sequel of the last years of Sonny's life. Nothing has done. I'm holding on to the information I have. Chronicled early in his life, it did not encompass his lengthy struggles with the prison industrial complex in America, confrontation with the music mega corporations such as Sony. I wrote a piece called Sonny versus Sony. Nevertheless, he was conscious of the industry's molding young artists' misguided thinking, acting and believing they were and are gangsters. He fully realized gangsters end up either in jail or dead. More important, however, he was cognizant of how the music industry in turn molds the cultural outlook of youngsters who provide the millions of dollars they so lavishly accumulate and celebrate. In the early heyday and reckless evolution of rap, when it was anything goes, Sonny's imprint was toned down. But he did encourage these young creative geniuses to continue to make good music, creative music, but be respectful, especially how they address female members of their culture. This champion of many causes was saddened he could not save Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls. He was aggrieved by the black experience in America. He never forget the Tuskegee experiment. There were 3 posters on the wall in front of his desk of black men hanging from trees. He constantly remembered the scarification from whippings, lynched black men and women hanging high beneath celebrating whites, miseducation in the schools, high black unemployment, the trauma, degradation, and humiliation of incarceration, and the ever-present racial profiling and police brutality. The impact of incarceration of families of men and women serving time affected him. People don't understand. When you're doing time, your family on the inside, your family is doing time on the outside. These profound issues and so much more Sonny fought against, and that's why he is missed tremendously as an uncompromising activist and nationalist. Ardent man of the people, he was respected by his adversaries. A member of the December 12 coalition, Sonny was accused of kidnapping a person under suspicion. The police one day called him and said, "Mr. Carson, when are you coming in to turn yourself in?" When he was finally arrested and he arrived at a prison called Don Moore, word got in that Sonny Carson is downstairs and the whole prison rioted in respect and show of appreciation. Well, the big man has come. In a somewhat garvey-esque manner, Sonny questioned, where are our men of bigger fears? Our giants who have passed on? What was being done to remember them? Hence, he founded the community to honor black youth. He also founded Black Men Against Crack. He created organizations that would bring people forward together, but sadly, they weren't able to move forward. He laid the foundation of Harriet Tubman Avenue to replace Fulton Street. Schools were named after Toussaint Louverture and Malcolm X, and the streets, Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X, were named in recognition of these great heroes. His imprint is too numerous to mention in this respect. Nevertheless, Sonny's greatest and final triumph was in the repatriation of the runaway slave, his ancestor, Samuel Carson, to Ghana, West Africa. Interned August 1st, 1998, so August of this year was 25 years in the burial.
African burial?
They returned the burial in Ghana of Samuel Carson. This significant return to Africa of an enslaved person alongside Crystal, they brought in a lady from Jamaica, West Indies, and they are buried together at a place called Asinmanso, where there is a river, and where the Africans were given their last bath before they were marched to the castle, the slave castles, boarded aboard the ship, through the door of no return, aboard ships bound for America. And thus, Sonny's return was to open the door of return. With the bones in Ghana, Jerry Rawlins launched the first Emancipation Day ceremony. Today, it's being celebrated throughout the West Indies, especially. I don't know much about different places in Africa, but I know that because I was in I think in Guyana one day in late August, and this guy said, "Oh, you just missed the Emancipation Day ceremony." In fact, I met a gentleman down there. I gave him a book and he said, "I like this book. I'm gonna put it on my desk." He says, "We have a gathering for the Emancipation Day celebration. And let me tell you about it." I said, "Hold on. Let me tell you about it." Because I was a key figure in sending the bones to Africa and initiation of a... Let me tell you something. Sonny Carson was no saint. He was a trickster. You understand? I was supposed to get 2 tickets, right? And there was a lady with me, and she was supposed to get 2 tickets. And then when we came out of Prospect Park, and we got back to, there was a ceremony in the Drummers Grove at Prospect Park, and the Sunday of the Tuesday when the bones were being shipped. And when we got back from Prospect Park to Restoration, I said, "Where's my tickets?" So I said, "I got no tickets." So, but I didn't fall apart. I went ahead, I took the photographs of that ceremony. I wrote an article, published it in the Daily Challenge, and forwarded that to the Library of Congress, recognizing that that event was a historic event. Remembering what I was told when I was at Temple. Never let a historic situation pass you by without writing about it. So I enshrined the ceremony in Prospect Park in the Library of Congress. Now I have a couple of copies, all right? And you people with deep pockets, nobody in the country got any, because I signed it on August 1st, 1998, so 25 years. It is not a Van Gogh or one of these guys, that sells a million. But you can buy it from me for 25. And if I keep it for another couple of years, I'm looking for 50,000 for it. But it's a record that nobody else has. So you want to have something on your wall above your sofa? Hit me up at the Marquee Lectures. So, the first Emancipation Day celebrated worldwide. None of this was shown in the script. It was shown in Germany, the burial. Dr. Felder was in Ghana. And he came home and he gave me, well, you remember in those days when you had to buy the film and develop it and you get the negatives. So that he gave me, as soon as he got home, he gave me all the negatives of the photographs he took at the ceremony of the burial of the bones in Ghana, when when Sonny got there with Dr. J and Professor Smalls, Duruba, and all of these people, I got all the information. So when this guy in California say he got 50% of the information to make the movie, he ain't got nothing. It's in storage. Oh, so if we can put together a movie on St. Carson, you guys got the money, you know, I got the information. We can do this. You hear me? It is a historical, literary, and photographic work of art. The Ghanaian president, Jerry Rawlings, presided over the runaways' return. The Bones Committee had met for nearly 2 years, sometimes 2 or 3 times per week, every Sunday. After serving at Drummers Grove in Prospect Park, Sonny took the Bones to Ghana, creating a site of pilgrimage to African Americans visited Africa in order to connect. Let me tell you something what happened when the Bones were trying to get out. The customs people didn't want the Bones to leave. So 2 of the ladies distracted the customs guy, and they rushed the coffin onto the plane. So they when he realized what happened, the plane was taken off, and that's how he ended up with him. But it was a bad image to send an African back to Africa, right? Befitting the great man that he was, many people visit him in the Veterans Hospital in Manhattan. Many prayed for him, and many commiserated with his family during this period of sadness and bereavement. Everyone came to pay their respects at the events surrounding his funeral. First, we met at Reverend Daughtry's church, then this church here on Hertmore, Friendship Baptist. The day of the funeral, beside New York City Technical College off of the Brooklyn Bridge, a procession began with the caisson, took the bones, his body, and we came down Flatbush Avenue, turned into Fulton Street at McDonald's, walked all the way up to Restoration, across Marcus Garvey, down Gates, into Brown Memorial, where everything ended up. Even more powerful, however, was the funeral walk and talk of the town. From the foot of the Brooklyn Bridge, a horse-drawn caisson, hearse, draped in red, black, and green, carrying the body, headed up Tillery, across Flatbush Avenue, up Fulton Street to Restoration, across Marcus Garvey, down Myrtle Avenue to Washington, and so forth. It was a procession of enormous size, with red, black, and green flags flying high. Proudly, willingly, many people braved the chilly weather and the lengthy walk, all with love in their hearts, warmth in their bodies, fire in their voices, and determination in their spirits, paying tribute to a great black hero, a loving husband, respected father, beloved friend, and second to none freedom fighter, warrior, thinker, strategist, champion, and enormous defender of the black race. Sonny Carson was an education activist. He led Ocean Hill-Brownsville protest boycott that ultimately created decentralization, involved in the Board of Education in New York City, which opened up hiring of black superintendents, black principals, and black teachers, parent involvement, and the school board voting. He was a principal advocating for creation of Medgar College of the City University. During one day he attended the graduation ceremony at Medgar College, and he was really upset because he was saying, "Where's African? I thought I was in Greece. I ain't hearing no drums." You know, I mean, it's supposed to be an African college. So after all the groundwork. So he was a principal advocating for creation of Medgar College in the City University. During the 1968 riots, mayors in Jersey especially, I met a guy here who was in Brooklyn. He said he had a store at Nostrand Avenue and Pacific Street, and then Sonny came in there and said, "Give me everything on the shelf." And he bought all the stuff and he took it over to Jersey because the reverberations of the riots, many people were without essentials. During the 1968 riots, Mayor Lizzie called on Sonny to use his influence to calm things down, and so he was instrumental in helping to advocate for establishment of Bedford Staff's Restoration Corporation, which was an attempt to revitalize that Bed-Stuy community, because he was considered the mayor of Bed-Stuy. And after his passing, we begin calling Bed-Stuy Abu Badikaville. Abu Badika. Committee Board 3 are interesting because Committee Board 3 voted to name 3 blocks along Gates Avenue in his honor. Christine Quinn was the chairman of the city council here, right? And she co-opted some of these Negroes so that they voted against naming. Now, if the community board vote, this is the community where they live, and they voted, it is a sine qua non, that is it's a rubber stamp acceptance. But they voted because they didn't want this guy to be remembered for all time. So she co-opted council members to vote against naming the street for Sonny. It is like the letter from Birmingham jail that Dr. King spoke about Negroes who should be the people's representative to the white man, but turned out to be the white man's representative to the people. Abu Badika was the name a visiting Ghanaian chief gave Sonny, which means he who leads his people. And some people couldn't say Abu Badika, they started calling him AB. Sonny Carson is gone, but his works and deeds live on. After all, how many more do we have to save? So we must tell the children about Sonny Carson and the good things he did. I'm not saying he's not good, okay? He didn't do some bad things. You know, he was a part of urban youth coming of age in the late 50s, early 60s in the United States. History has and will judge Sonny appropriately. This book, Sonny Carson, The Final Trial, what it represents, the powers that be have determined that, well, Sonny's dead, he's gone, whatever, we've forgotten him. But this book is a resurrection of Sonny Carson. Some of the things that he stood for, some of the expressions that I made in describing what I saw when I worked with him. Okay? So this here is a treasure that we must hold on to. So there you have it. So I've done Dr. King and I've done Sonny. I want to go on to my lady. Okay, so they're telling me, oh man, you're giving them too much information. So I said, let them eat. Let them eat. Let them eat. My job, to quote a gentleman that I love, my job is to present information. Okay, so while we were strategizing, Sonny asked me, at that time, Mike Tyson was arrested. And Sonny believed that Mike didn't really know who he was. He was champion. So Sonny asked me to, as we were kicking it, he said, somebody ought to tell that guy about Black history. So I wrote this here called, my brother got to get this, 10 Poems Praising Great Blacks by Frederick Monderson for Mike Tyson. So I wrote these 10 poems. None of this has anything to do with Mike Tyson. So when I was finished, I said to he said, no, continue to work. So I started sending Tyson a whole lot of information. I figured, I said, well, listen, brother, you can be in there forever, so read all of this. But Ray, would you want to get this? This is my poem book of poems, 10 poems praising great blacks for Mike Tyson by Frederick Monderson. This was done in 1999. So I told him, I said, well, I'm finished. He said, no, keep writing. So I started sending Mike Tyson a whole lot of stuff, right? Well, fortunately, in 3 months he was out of prison, but I had sent him so much information. I was able to publish this book called 7 Letters to Mike Tyson on Egyptian Temples. It had nothing to do with his lifestyle. I was just saying, listen here, brother, you can be in there forever. Start reading about Egyptian temples. Okay, so 576 pages and something like that. So when I was doing my doctorate at City University, I started reading by, I think it was Montesquieu, and wrote these Persian letters, and I come to realize the significance of a letter, because once you put it in writing, they have to defend against it. So I started writing these letters. I wrote letters. I was on Dr. Mark's bus at the Million Man March with the Ward Phillip. He was the editor of the Daily Challenge in '95, October 25th. I wrote when O.J. Simpson was in the bunker, in the Bronco chase. I was cleaning my floor, and I wrote an editorial on that, and then I figured, I said, well, this brother gonna be in prison forever. So I ended up writing 19 letters to O.J. Simpson on ancient African history. Had nothing to do with his lifestyle, but I was writing again about temples, because temples is my forte, right? And then on the Million Man March, I took these 19 volumes to the Library of Congress. And then there was this brother, his name was, all I can remember, his name was Sid. And a part of his left hand was missing. He lost half from the elbow to the wrist. And when the bus put us off in RFK Stadium in DC, we had to walk from there to the Capitol building. I ended up writing an article for the papers called Walking the East Capitol Mile. And when we got to the right side of the Capitol building, besides the Marble Terrace, I said, I'm going to the Library of Congress with these 2 bags of books. And Sid picked up one of the bags. He said, I want to make history 2 times today. So when we got to the Library of Congress, I told the lady I want to register this book. And she said, okay, put it on the table. And then when I took out the book, I had 19 volumes. I have the registration for it. She called all these people, hey, look at this. So I write these letters. It's the same thing, Sonny, Dr. Ben, Michael Jackson, at the funeral, at the Apollo. So I try to do my best to preserve some aspects of our history. Keep in mind that the written word is permanent and it's forever, provided it is protected, okay? So I've done my bit on that. Now, my lady. So Queen Hatshepsut was 18 dynasty. She was the fifth queen, the 5th king. How could a woman be king? Well, she was daring. She was creative. All right. Her father, Thutmose I, married her to her brother, Thutmose II, but he was weak. She was a co-ruler with him. She kicked him aside and assumed control of the nation. Remember, this is a time when men dominated government. And for a young woman about 18 years old, to assume control of a major state in the Middle East in 1500 BC, you got to understand what are the challenges that she would face. So her father advised her to make alliances with important men in the kingdom. So she chose these people to be a part of her cabinet. And one of the most significant ones was Sonny, who was an architect and constructed many of the buildings that she was able to erect. Among others, she built her mortuary temple at a place called Deir el-Bahari. It was actually excavated between 1893 and 1900. And there was a lot of mystery about it because the contours of the structure was unlike anything that was seen before. And people wondered, where did she get this idea from? Well, it would turn out that there was a prior adjacent temple that was built 500 years prior that was still in existence, active at the time that her architect chose to construct her place, and he uses this as a prototype. Pretty soon, not only did her father endorse her right to rule, he called all of the nobles of the kingdom and says, listen, this is my daughter. You are supposed to follow her every lead. Those who will support her will live. Those who will speak evil of her will die. Well, she realized that a woman is in a very tenuous position among males in a male-dominated world. So she said that she changed her name. She changed her name from Hatshepsut to Hatshepsut. And she said that this guy Tutmosis is not really my father. The great god Amun-Ra is actually my father. I was born from the gods. So the god visited my mother in the guise of my father. And in a flash of light and perfume, they did their thing. And the god said to her, that child, that girl child that you have in your body right now will rule this great nation. So she put all of that illustrated in her temple at Deir el-Bahari. The uniqueness of Deir el-Bahari and the greatness of Sonny is that you can see the actual temple in its complete form. Most temples have a pylon entranceway that sometimes 30 feet high. So you can't see anything, you gotta go inside. But because this temple is built up against the mountain, you could see the 3 levels of platforms against the background of the mountain. In a time when the notion of the world's great 7 wonders of the world were constructed or were codified, even though this temple was built before number 2. The first temple, the world's first great wonder was the Great Pyramid of Giza, which today remains while the other 6 have vanished. So that we always wondered, why is it that Hatshepsut's temple, 3,500 years later, is still almost as magnificent as when it was constructed? Why was this not considered an ancient wonder of the world? And yet, because first of all, the standard of the time was 1-story structures, and this was a 3-story building. Right? So he said it had to be because she was a woman. So while she was challenged for being a woman, she says, I'm the son of God. I'm the son. Okay, so the king had 5 titles. His horse title, his golden horse title, his 2 ladies title, his suit and bar title, and his son-in-law title. So she said, I'm son of God. She went around with, she was not, as I indicated before, she was not big bosomed. So she would dress as most people did without a top. Well, your Majesty, you don't have a beard. So she made a beard and hung it around her neck like a necklace. And she said, and she did everything to convince those that were concerned that she was in fact male and capable of ruling. So she initiated many cultural events, many cultural, she gave her name to a number of things. Among others, she had her administration tour the nation to visit all of the ancient monuments, all right? She built it tremendously, had Senman built for her. And get to Senman in a minute, because Senman is an important figure. We all are familiar with the Rushmore phenomenon, where the presidents of the United States are emblazoned against the side of the mountain somewhere out there in, I don't know where Rushmore is, well. Senman, the Queen's architect, is the one who initiated this concept, right? But no one would tell us that. And that is why so much of our ancient history is camouflaged in the American experience that we're not aware of. That's why you remember Professor Simmons says, I don't write about Malcolm X or Martin Luther King, I write about ancient Egypt because our people don't know much about it. And the last time I was here, we had a little discussion about whether we are forgetting some of the old scrappers, Martin Delaney, Drusilla Dungy, Carter G. Woodson, W.B. Du Bois, and the role that they played. Yes, but Dr. Ben carried people actively. He showed, Ray showed you the book about that Dr. Ben had written Black Man of Night and his family, and if you look in that book, you will see so many people that were going to Egypt. So what he did is he shed light on it. We say that Sonny Carson brought the light, but Dr. Ben lit the light so that our people could see. Okay. So Senman created the Mount Rushmore phenomenon, where he emblazoned the side of a mountain at a place called Cornell, and he placed his family's images against the mountain. And Rushmore is a copy of that idea. And nobody's going to tell you that. Just like how Dr. Feller used to always say, the lady in the harbor, Lady Liberty, Statue of Liberty. We don't know what she represented. But if you were there prior, in 1876, the French gave America this statue to commemorate the freeing of the black woman. And on the foot, I think is the left side. And I beg my brother if he's familiar with, I can't remember if it's left or right side. You could see the chains that were broken, indicating that the Statue of Liberty was a black woman freed from slavery. So Dr. Feldman always referred to that. Okay, never mind. So what did Hatshepsut do? So she built her mortuary temple at Jerubari that was equivalent to the Museum of Ramses II, the Corner Temple and the Abydos Temple of Seti I, his father, and Medinet Habu, which was the mortuary temple of Ramses III, 20th dynasty. So you got 18th, 19th, and 20th dynasty architecture. She built the Red Chapel, that was the sanctuary of Karnak Temple that was destroyed by her successor Thutmose III because he felt that she had kept him from ruling for nearly 2 decades, and he was very upset about it. She built a kiosk in the temple of Luxor that was initially built by Amenhotep III of the 18th dynasty. She built this temple because she was before him. So there was a smaller temple in that location. Excuse me. He dismantled that temple and then erected his magnificent temple. Thank you, sir. He erected his magnificent temple, and there were 18th dynasty, and in the 19th dynasty, Ramses II, he came along, extended the temple, and built the great wall around it with a great pylon. So she built that. But strangely enough, Thutmose III and Ramses, they chiseled out her name and they inserted their own names. She erected 2 obelisks at Karnak Temple. In fact, there were 4 obelisks that were erected at her mortuary temple, Deir el-Bahari, across the river. There was an image of 4 obelisks. We only see 2 today. One still standing, one was broken and lay prone beside the sacred lake, but was ultimately, the zenith of it was ultimately erected on a smaller base. And what I did when I was there in 2022 is that I went south and I was able to get a photograph image of the tip of her second obelisk with her first obelisk and the obelisk of her father, Thutmose I, in the processional way. The 2 obelisks still standing is one of her father and one of hers, and the one that was laying beside, you've been there, beside the sacred lake, and now we erected that. So I got over here, I was able to get a picture of her 2 obelisks with the obelisk of her father. In her Deir el-Bahari temple, she has illustrated the expedition she sent to Punt, which is in the area of today's Somalia, and they brought back incense trees that were planted in front of her, in front of the first pylon to her temple, and she bought she bought fishes and different other plant species that were planted in the causeway to the temple, both inside the pylon and outside of the pylon. She had built a valley temple besides the river, so that in visiting the temple, you come by boat, then you get off, and you have this tremendous, maybe a 1.5 mile journey to where the temple was. So you create a walkway or a causeway, and that was lined with sphinxes and other kind of vegetation. And then she built pools. The question is, how the heck she got water so far away from the river to feed the pools? And she called it pools of milk, so that the god can enjoy, the refreshing environment in that summer desert-like area. She built the Red Chapel that was the sanctuary of her time, and it was dismantled It was attacked and broken up and buried in a pylon that in the 1890s it was excavated and then reconstructed, and it is now visible, reconstructed in what is called the Open Air Museum. That is, prior, you had to buy a ticket to be here, but lately you can go in for free. So every time I go there, I go to there, take pictures. And on the Red Chapel, on the eastern outer face, you can see image of the two obelisks that she erected. It's at the top. You go there on the outer face of the Red Chapel, you will see it there, and so forth. So what would happen is ultimately her rule would be overthrown, and the people who were tied to her were attacked by Thutmose and his adherents, and their images were destroyed. Her images were chiseled out. Beside the sanctuary, there is an image where you can see her image is systematically chiseled out so that she will be lost from history. Unfortunately, about a decade ago, she had a little, like what do you call a cabinet, bedroom cabinet, that they were able to save. You know, it was found in her tomb that was firebombed, and it was never opened. So one day, and this is in the time of Zahi Hawass, they decided to open this chest, and lo and behold, they found a tooth in the chest. Oh, what's it doing? And then somebody remembered, you know, there is an old mummy lying in the back over there in one of those back rooms. Guess what? It doesn't have a tooth. It has a missing tooth. So they began a systematic study, bringing in different types of scientists, dentals and what have you. They were able to determine that tooth belonged, it's her tooth. It's in her cabinet, okay? So it had to be her tooth. And the tooth fit exactly in the missing space on the mummy. So Zahir Hawass was able to determine, and this was in the times, we have absolute proof that this mummy is the body of Queen Hatshepsut. So even though her enemies had sought to remove her existence from history, she has been, her whole image has been resurfaced. Right? Some years ago, Zahir Hawass, who Baval says that he's a criminal, is one of those people who take money, you know. Anyway, but he was in charge of the Antiquities Commission, so he was that guy. And he said that King Tut is the only person we know for a fact, the only pharaoh we know for a fact exactly who he is, because we found him in a sealed tomb. So I call that the Tutankhamun yardstick when I do analogies in terms of other aspects of my writings and stuff like that. So we knew exactly who Tutankhamun was because we found him in the suit. And now we have absolute proof that Queen Hatshepsut is who we say she is. And so we're not saying that all of the other pharaohs and what have you are not who they are, but we do not have absolute proof of who they are. Okay, so in 1881, they found what is called the Deir el-Bahari Cache. That is to say, right beside where this temple was, Queen Hatshepsut's temple, they found in a little cavern a whole stack of mummies of the 18th and 19th dynasty. With a lot of jewelry. There was, the Rasul brothers had found this place, and over the years, they were pilfering and selling some of the artifacts that were in there. Until Gaston Maspero said, wait a minute, we didn't hear about any tomb that was discovered, but we're seeing gradually important pieces are coming on the market. So they arrested one of the brothers, put him in jail, and for 3 months he didn't say nothing. And in the meantime, his other brother was selling, still stealing. So finally he said, listen, my brother was getting rich off of this stuff. Well, many of the mummies that were found were not found in the coffins in which they were initially laid. Okay? Some of the robbers, and the whole notion of robbery goes back even to ancient times. They would unroll the mummy, take out the jewelry that were within the confines of the mummy cloth, and then rewrap the mummy. So they weren't sure. Sometimes they'll say that your mummy was in his tomb and his mummy was in that tomb. So they weren't sure who these people were. But we have absolute proof that Tut and Hatshepsut were it was. Now, when Hatshepsut was a young princess, she built a tomb for herself in the Valley of the Queens, really. So they had where the internments would be. Yeah, the Valley of the Kings, the Valley of the Queens, the Valley of the Nobles, and the Valley of the Artisans. So she was supposed to be buried in the Valley of the Queens. So she became king, and she said, that's not good enough for me, I got to be buried in the Valley of the Kings. So she had a second tomb. And it is a phenomenon, because I'm working on something like this, about individuals who had two tombs. Hornhal, he had two tombs. Ahmed's mother, she had two tombs, right? And so on. But, of course, they firebombed both of her tombs. Samuel had two tombs. He had a tomb at where I told you that the Rushmore Memorial was, and he built a tomb secretly in the Queen's Temple, which he's not supposed to do. He was a commoner. This guy, he was well liked by the Queen. He had something like 40 titles. One of his titles was Master of the Royal Bedroom. Some people said that they were having a relationship, because he's the only one who could go in there in the royal bedroom. I was listening to Sparrow last night singing this song about the guy that was in Queen Elizabeth's bedroom when the husband was away. I don't know if you ever heard about that. Come on in your bedroom. So, but he would go in there, speak with the Queen, bring out the words, and speak it to the other people. So, but he was in charge of everything. The most powerful man in the kingdom. So, he felt that if he could build a secret tomb inside the Queen's temple, then on the ceiling of the tomb, among the stars, he placed the Queen's name, so that from his repose position, he can view his lady in the heavens. Fantastic. He knew that he was in trouble. If the Queen never lost power, they will come after him. So what he did, he decorated the wall of his tomb, then he put plaster over it, and then he redecorated. So when they found the tomb, they scarified it. We got rid of him, just like Sonny resurrected. So what happened is that years later, when they finally discovered the tomb, the plaster began to peel. And we see that there was 2 levels of decoration. So he did that. Thus he was able to preserve his, some aspects of his experience with the queen. Hatshepsut, okay, again, to be familiar with the layout, most of the kings of the 18th and 19th dynasty built a mortuary temple on the west bank of Thebes. The west bank of Thebes, they were able to access that from the Nile River. But where the burial location is on the other side of the mountain. So what she wanted to do, she wanted to, instead of when I die and there's a ceremony, then they will have to bring me out from my temple in a procession all the way around to get to the Valley of the Kings. So she wanted to build a tunnel from her temple directly to her tomb. And they began digging. But the soil below the mountain couldn't sustain a temple. I couldn't sustain a tunnel. So it had to be abandoned. Now, Senmut. Senmut was an important figure who did everything for the queen. One of his most important feats was to quarry 2 obelisks at Aswan and bring it down 300 miles on flat bottom boats with tugs. And this kind of transportation had to be done when the river was high. Okay, so right now in a place called at Aswan, there is what is called the unfinished obelisk. So they were digging this obelisk, and it turned out that there was sort of like a crack in it, and they had to abandon it. But Aswan always had good stone, so you would quarry the stone at Aswan and then ship it down river to the place of erection. And he was able to, within the space of 7 months, detach 200-foot obelisks, transport them down to Karnak Temple, have them decorated and erected in the space of 7 months, which was considered an enormous feat. The other 2, I mentioned that there were probably 4, because in her temple, 4 obelisks are mentioned, are on the wall. So the other 2 obelisks, and they don't know where that was. Some people think that it was behind the Akhmenu. The Akhmenu was the mortuary temple of the festival temple of Thutmose. So they thought that it was at the east gate 2 more. Right? But his successor, Amenhotep, was the architect who succeeded him. He erected the additional 2 obelisks. And so we know so much about him and her. She built bark stations in Luxor Temple that was built by Amenhotep III was when I first started out after I come back from the Vietnam. I went to Hong Kong and bought these silk suits. You know, I don't know if you remember, you young folks can't remember. It was bell bottoms and pink stripes and what have you. So I bought me this. In that day, it was $300 American silk suit from Hong Kong. So I'm going to the chemical bank to get a job, right? And this guy was on the train, and he was speaking to his friend, and he said, how did it go? He said, well, I went away to my summer home. And I'm saying to myself, oh my God. But at least I was conscious at that time. I'm wearing a $300 suit. And I'm renting. And this guy wearing $25. That time you get a $25 suit. I didn't get a summer home. So the temple of Luxor was the retreat for god Amun, who would go there and spend 24 days with his wife, goddess Mut. Right? So they would get to celebrate what is called the Opet Festival. The Opet Festival would travel the 3 miles. Part of it went by boat, part of it went by road. So she built these bark stations that the priests who carried the bark of the god on their shoulders would rest. So there were really 3 types of main temples. There is a god temple where the god is worshipped. There is a mortuary temple where the king was worshipped. And then there was what is called a processional temple where when these people are traveling by foot and they get tired, they would stop and rest. So the bark station became rest temples. So she built about 7 of them between Karnak and Luxor. And then she also began, orientation of the temple is important because Amun was the sun god. His temple was oriented from east to west, which was the path of the sun god when he rose in the morning, crossed the heavens, and descended beyond the mountains on the west side. Karnak Temple, the sanctuary of the Karnak Temple, just as the sanctuary, the red chapel sanctuary of Hatshepsut was open. There were, as far as I know, there were only 2 open temples. That is to say, most temples only had 1 entrance. But Karnak Temple had 2 entrances, so that when the sun rose, the rays of the sun would shine into the sanctuary. And after the god had transited the heavens, before it descended beyond the mountains, it would shine back the last rays of the last of its rays back into the open side of the temple. The processional temple had two openings, similarly. Okay, so Karnak temple had an east-west axis. Hatshepsut opened up a north-south access to get from Karnak to Luxor. So I said in the beginning that so many of the things that she did was innovative. And that's why you see when you consider the magnificence of the woman in a time when only men were considered capable of doing this, that, or whatever, she was avant-garde and left her imprint. What else? Do I have something else I want to add here? Okay. Oh yeah. So I mentioned this is about Dr. Ben. Okay. So it could have been in '90 when I was with Dr. Ben in Egypt, and we were in the Valley of the Kings. So you know, I don't know if the John Yard brothers have been know the layout, you know. So we were in the Valley of the Kings, and at that time you can transit the mountain, or you can walk over to get a bird's eye view of the temple, Hatshepsut's temple. You can't do that now. There are signs that says you can't cross over. I meant to cross twice, and one time when I was with Dr. Ben, I did it, and Dr. Ben was upset that I took the initiative to cross over the mountain. I didn't understand. But the next year, a bunch of tourists, German tourists, were shot when they were coming into the temple because some of the radicals over there came to the same area and started killing those people. Of course, you know, anywhere the tourists go, any kind of bad publicity messes up with the finances. So anyway, but that we made sure that I understand that, right? I have what I call a mountain view of the temple. Because I went up there, took photographs. Like, you can't do it no more. So that's a one of a kind stuff. And so forth. Do I have anything I want to talk about here? So, not really, but. So, Queen Hatshepsut and her man, the architect, Senwood, he did so much. He tied his fortunes to that of the queen. And when she fell from power, he was victimized as well. His tomb and those of his brother and his mother, their tombs were also attacked and so forth. So in essence then, I think that I've covered much of what I wanted to do today. And I want to thank everyone for their riding with me. And if there are any questions, I'd be glad to entertain them.
Zoom audience, anybody got a question for Dr. Monderson? Anybody on the Zoom? Okay. Anybody on the floor got a question for Dr. Monderson? Lady V.
You said something concerning Ramses and Tutmos chiseled out her name?
Yeah, well, the fact is that Tutmosis the third. So the father was Tutmosis I, the brother was Tutmosis II, and the young brother, which it is said that the father had a son by one of his concubines, who was Tutmosis III. And he should have been the ruler. She was co-ruler with him, but she kicked him aside, and she ruled for nearly 2 decades. So he was angry, and we're not sure whether he had his people kill her or not. There was a guy named Wedderman that showed an image of Tutmosis III attending the funeral of Hatshepsut. But that's the only bit of information that we have where the two of them together. So what he did was, and his adherents, they attacked her construction. Right. They destroyed her red chapel. They attacked her temple. And besides the sanctuary at Karnak, they chiseled out her name. She is shown being baptized by Thoth and Horus with the Ankhs. And you can see a systematic image of her being baptized, being chiseled out. I was looking at it today, but so yeah. And they did everything so that she'd be forgotten. Right. Okay, but fortunately, her temple was lasting. The obelisk that she erected in Karnak, the 2 obelisks, right? What he did was he built a wall around it, right? Around the 2 temples, the 2 obelisks. And during Akhenaten's period, when he was attacking everything that was related to Amun, somehow he didn't get there. So the obelisks were preserved. And the second obelisk fell in an earthquake that shook that area, that destroyed Amenhotep III's temple in the West Bank or what have you. So they did everything so that she would be erased from history, but unfortunately, it didn't pan out. Yes.
Okay. Any other question from the floor?
I wanted to ask, when is the next tribute that you do to Dr. Ben in June?
Well, you know, we were supposed to do one. But Ray was arranging to do it right here, but COVID kicked us. So,
So presently, when do you plan to do?
well, let me get together with Brother Ray, and if we can get something for the Memorial Day weekend, we can do it here. Okay? Let me say this, that, you know, I say that Dr. Lewis and I go way back. So Dr. Lewis encouraged Dr. Ben to endorse my work. Now, why these people say I was in bed with Ben and all that, you know, endorse them. Okay? Dr. Ben wrote letters to the newspaper about me. But in my book on Dr. Ben, he gave me permission to call for papers, to do tributes in his name, and to do tributes in Dr. Clark's name. Remember at the restaurant where he used to eat, or I think it's Lennox. Remember the famous restaurant there where he used to? So he gave me permission. I took it on my own to do tributes to him, but he gave me written permission. That's in the book. In 2010, again in 2015, 2010, I know for a fact, but call for papers. But I have generally carried the tribute on my own, okay? So if I can work it out with Brother Ray, I will try to resume. I think the last one I did was the 13th. So perhaps it is time that we begin again, honoring the great man.
Okay.
Some news?
All right, one last question, lady, Ms. D.
Professor Monderson, you were talking about, is it 4 obelisks?
Yeah.
You were talking about? What happened to them? Were they destroyed by human beings, or was it by nature and the wind and the weather and the time of the clock?
We don't know.
One coming across
We
us.
don't know what happened. We know of 2 obelisks that were standing. One still stands. The zenith of another lays by the sacred lake that has been now erected on a shorter base. The temple has an image of 4 obelisks. Okay? The temple, of course, a mortuary temple. So we know that 4 obelisks were, but we don't know where they were. It is postulated that the 2 were at the eastern gate. So you have the layout, excuse me, the layout of the Armenian Festival Temple of Thutmose III. Then behind that is a smaller temple where the priests were trained in ritual of the temple. And beyond that is what was called the Temple of the Hearing Ear, built by Ramses II. And beyond that was the Ethiopian temple built by Taharqa. Taharqa, the Ethiopian, built kiosks in the north, south, east, and west entrances to the temple. He was one of the most prolific of the Ethiopian rulers. He was the most prolific of the builders at Karnak Temple. So the assumption is that an obelisk was between the eastern part of Ramses' girdle temple, between there and his temple of the hearing aid. It's in that area. Well, we can't tell you exactly where. We do know that there is an image of 4 obelisks.
Well, my question is, were they destroyed by nature and time, or did human beings destroy them? That's my question.
Well, of the 2 that we know of, the one fell off. There was an earthquake.
So it was time and nature.
That the earthquake across the river, that may have been instrumental in bringing down her second obelisk.
Okay, so it was
Okay.
nature and time.
So on time,
Not people.
what has happened with the excavation of Look, we gotta give the Europeans credit for the clearance of Egypt, the monuments. Because when you see the very old photographs, everything was under 20 feet of debris. Okay? So that when you go there today, it wasn't like that all the time. So what we found is that nature and man destroyed much. Okay? Even the present occupants of Egypt today are benefiting from the economic windfall of the monuments. But in ancient times, when I say ancient, I mean the last 300-400 years, they were selling everything that they can get their hands on because that is how they were able to get their resources. Right? So man and time has a role to play in destruction.
And they're erasing black images now. They're paying people to do that. That's
Well, we're not worried about that. The door is open, okay? And right now, one of my jobs is to preserve as much information as I can. And I got a lot of information.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
I just wanted to point out that the hearings on police brutality, automatics played a key role in that, and that, I'm not